Welcome to step 21. This is going to be brief because I'm not going to really go through it too crazy. This is not really a difficult step. I have the number Q29 there because this is when I was talking in the other video about the missing part in the front end, just so you're aware. This is building the chocks that go onto the trailer and where to put all of the photo etch. So I went ahead and I built one out of photo etch. It was kind of time consuming, kind of a pain, and when I put these in, they don't quite support everything, and so it's got kind of a curved face to it. That is not correct. And eventually I did get it all put together, but yeah, it looks a little frailer than it should for the piece, and it also just didn't go together. But I'll quick show you the key points to doing it in case you decide to do it on your own. I guess I shouldn't be too flippant about it. So this is the main piece. To get this to work the way it's supposed to, you have to fold it so that these two etched in spots are on the inside. So I just fold it by hand, there's no problem with that, and match it up against that right there. Looks good. Next, just so you know, I've got two little, I'm going to take these off of here even though they might get lost. I already cut through and loosened up all these photo etched parts. I just didn't take them off. I took the cover plastic, the sticky part off, the protective plastic, and now I'm peeling this off the back of the other stuff. I mean, we've been doing this for a while, we should all know that, but so when you're done with this step, both of these frets should be empty. Anyways, this gets folded as well, and you can fold this by hand as well. Last time I folded it into the folds. Now I'm going to try folding it away. See what I mean? The etchings are on that side, just to see if it gives me a little bit more height. What I was noticing with this one right here is that when you put this in like this, this matched up fine like that, but then when you go to put the side pieces on there, or when you go to put this piece on, you'll notice that there's a gap here. So it's not supposed to have a gap. This is supposed to, like this shows down here, this back plate should be a little bit proud or even with these other plates, not sliding in between them. It's pretty close. That'll glue, but you'll notice that with that set up the way it should be to glue, now you've got free space in there for this centerpiece to flop around. If I push this down so that this front piece fits, you know, when I glue this on, it's going to leave a gap in here. So rather than mess with all that and to show you and get frustrated again, let's just say here it is, all done. I glued the centerpiece in, and then I glued the outside edges on, which, yeah, it did take a little bit of work. And then I glued this. You have to make sure that the side with the indents is on the outside, and I glued that on, but I glued it so that it would be at least touching the top and the bottom and was even left to right, so that this was all folded correctly, so it looked good again. So it ended up looking like this, and you can see there's still, I didn't get it and there's a little bit of an overhang there. And you can actually find photos of these online, but regardless, instead what I did was I went and made my own through 3D printing, and a little bit of trial and error, but I got it set up with the handle on the back so you don't have to glue the plastic on there. I just have to sand right down here, like so. You can see where all the little attachment points were. But now that's all cleaned up. And this gets put onto the trailer. Pull that up here. And on this, just as, I'm going to call it decoration because it doesn't actually affect how anything goes, part SD9, yeah, SD9 goes, you can see in the photo etched barriers, there's kind of indents here, 2 on this side, and then on the interior one there's 1. I already glued one of the bolts there, and I glued the bolts on here, just on that side. But just, that's where those go, but they don't affect anything. And then these just get placed in between, and you will glue these down. They don't really do anything. And then you will take part SD8, which are these itty bitty little ones, and you glue them onto the plate, which is SD6. And then taking, and you put the long side up, and you put it on this edge like that. And then when you put another one on here, and I have seen them where they are both ways, but if it's going to work the way it's supposed to work, where this is even up, because these are supposed to be flat on the top, you do it like that so that this bolt comes close to matching up with the little on the side of each one of these. Right here in the back there are little areas. They have holes in an open space, and that's what's supposed to carry apparently the bolt that's meant to represent. But anyways, as long as you get it close, it's good. But it goes on like so with the small bolt that's on this plate matching up with the large bolt that you glued on onto the stringer. And I don't know why this thing just won't stand up like it was doing a little bit ago. But like so. And once that's glued on, and you can glue that to the part right there, and this gets moved to that point, that is what holds all that in place. I have also seen photos with just 2 of these, 1 on each side, sometimes with this up, sometimes with it down, sometimes there's nothing on here. So yeah, I already glued the parts on here. You can't hardly tell. I don't know why they didn't just photo etch the rings in. One other thing that I discovered that I wanted to talk about real quick, aside from that, is on the trailer ramps, they have these small grips, is what they are, welded on in that. At first I thought that they weren't right. They are right. There are technically 3 different types of ramps that I found photos for in U.S. Army service. One is this size right here, the smaller ones. The next one is a size to where they go the full length across. And the third one is they've got much bigger ones, or I'm sorry, much smaller ones at more frequent intervals across this whole thing. And the whole reason I found that out is I was looking at how these mount, because as you can see, this thing moved while it was gluing, and trying to get that in place has been somewhat of a chore. And 99% of the photos I see of these trailers, they are not held down. First of all, they're held tight. Those chains are tight. They're not held down by D-rings in this spot, and in fact, nothing seems to go there, but they have attached something, whether it's an eye bolt or some other, I've not been able to find out what, but it's been attached here so that the chain runs from there to this point here, and it's tight. And they oftentimes are using so it'd be tight like that and then pushed over there. But I've also seen photos of, even when they're tight, one will be forward like this and one will be laid back like that, so they're not all pulled forward like this tight all the time. And like I said, I was looking for the tie downs. There's something, but it doesn't say exactly what it is that's here, that's usually tied down to. I've also seen the chain. They've got like a C-clamp or some other device on here, so the chain goes to that, and that's what attaches to the ring. But I've also seen it wrapped around this handle. The chain just wrapped around that handle and then run over to whatever that mounting device is. And you can, I guess you can look into it and see if you can find out what it is. I have not been able to figure it out. That said, this pretty much right here with that wraps it up. There's still the air hoses to put on the truck, the colored air hoses, the blue and red one. But for the most part, this is done. So, and all of this stuff through the whole build that I've made for the truck, I'll end up throwing it up on eBay. You can get it if you really want it. That'd be the fuel tanks, the rings on the sides, these chocks. I don't know, I may even make a few other things for my own build after this. I did hear from the gentleman, so we'll see. Sorry, trying to open up my glue and I can't. So I'm gonna have to take these very, very hard to find little pieces and put them over here on the side for now, because I want to flip the instructions over and talk to you guys a little bit about what's left. Okay, so again, 21 is done with the making of these chocks and adding those bolts and pieces there. Then it basically just has you attach the trailer to the tractor for step 22. That's it. And then moving on to the last page right here, step 23 is making these two air hoses. Like I said, one is red, one is blue, and that's the hoses that came in the kit. Not in here though. And what you're doing is you're wrapping them up in this cylinder shape right here, which is the important part, and then you're attaching it to the truck side as it shows in here. And there is finally another hose that runs from the stack right here over to the central part of the trailer. So technically there are three hoses. Eventually they get hooked up. However, and this is a bit of a deal, if you're not going to hook the trailer up to the truck, to be completely correct, you actually need to go in here on this line and sever these two, because these are what are called glad hands. And so this bottom one, you know, let's say it's the well, which line would this be? I believe this is the, oh, it doesn't say. Let's just say it's the red line. I'm not sure if it is or not. But anyways, it goes in, you come in at an angle, I believe it's like a 45-degree angle, put it together and hook it up. But when you take it off, you unhook it, and that half stays on the end of the hose that's on the back of the truck. It doesn't, you don't disconnect the hose from that glad hand here, kind of the way that they have it set up. So, if you want to show the truck separate, you got to split those out. And this is where that hose line goes on here. That one, I believe, is set up for pushing it in and it being positive. It's not a glad hand. But I may end up looking into making glad hands that are separate real quick, just for people who might want to do it unconnected, because otherwise it's not going to look right. Anybody who's ever done any trucking is going to see that, and they're going to go, what's up with that? You know, you don't just have loose hoses with nothing on the ends laying around, and you don't leave those ends of the glad hands on there. And the reason around here, and the reason behind that is those glad hands open up the valve. So if you have that on there and no hose, it's just bleeding the air out, and you've got, well, technically you've got no air in the system anyways, because you disconnected it, but it does leave it primed for a while, leaves the pressure in there for a while. Regardless, we'll see what happens, but this is the end. This is step 23. No, I am not wrapping this up right now because I'm going to deal with those glad hands. I will do a quick addendum for step 23 and anything else that I find, and then I'll do one large overview of both the truck and the trailer, and we'll be wrapped up. See ya for those videos.